Hi everyone, Nathan here from Mighty Lancer Games, and today we're going to try our first ever miniature painting stream, and we're going to be painting this guy, who is Danar from Reaper Miniatures. So this is the Bones version, which I've undercoated using Reaper black primer, brush-on primer, and got him in my Citadel painting handle, because I really like the way that you can manipulate your figure. So we've got that guy, and we've got our wet palette, and we've got our paint set up, and we're going to go through step by step how you paint this guy. So he is out of our, that camera there. He's out of our latest sub box that we sent out at the end of February. So this is the Reaper sub box that you can order in from Mighty Lancer Games, and if you're in the UK only currently, until Brexit finishes doing whatever it's doing. But currently only in the UK, for £20 every month. You send it to us through PayPal on a recurring subscription type thing, and then we send you a box in the post that's got £25 worth of Reaper Bones figures in. So this month's had this guy and a giant worm and a giant, actual giant with a hunting hound, a hellhound, and a couple of other figures in there. So we make sure it's at least £25 at our prices on our website, not Reaper's prices, because we're generally about 10% cheaper than Reaper's prices. So we make sure it's got all that value, and then we post it to you, postage included, in a box for £20. And sometimes you might get something else cool in there, so you might get a sticker, you might want a game sticker, or you might get some sweets, or anything else that we decide that you might like. So we're going to crack on, and we're going to paint this guy. So we put a little list up online, I think, of the paints that we're going to use, or the rough colours that we're going to use, and I've got those arrayed here in front of me, and I've got Mrs MLG here alongside me to guide me, and she'll be operating the chat and what have you, and just giving me a nudge if I need to answer any questions. But otherwise I'll just be babbling along while I'm attempting to paint this guy, and hopefully you can all join in and have a bit of fun. Now, I'm not a great miniature painter, I'll freely admit that. I have been doing it for a long time, but that doesn't mean that I'm very good. Now, Mrs MLG has been painting a mini a day all this year so far, and she's done amazing, and her painting has come on in leaps and bounds, as if you follow our Facebook and Twitter and all the rest of the things, you'll see all the minis that she's painted and how well she's come. But I'm not a great miniature painter, so you'll see my efforts on here, but hopefully we can do it justice. So we've got a few bits and pieces, and I'll talk you through what paints we're going to use. I've not got any fancy paintbrushes, so these are just Green Stuff World paintbrushes that are really cheap. So these are, apart from this one, which is a one of their Kolinsky standard detail brushes, but these are about £3.25, and then these other two are just synthetics. So this is a 0, this is a 1, and this is a 3. So we're just going to use these 3 brushes and a selection of paints that we've got, which are all available ranges, and we'll talk you through what we're doing. So let's crack on. We're going to put some paint on the wet palette and make a start. So this is Caucasian Flesh. Now I must say that these are some paints that I've had in the cupboard for a while, but Reaper, so this is a Reaper paint, and the 298 paint codes that these are, have, unfortunately, they've been discontinued, but what they have done is rolled them into the Reaper Bones paint range. So they've all just had new names and new codes, and it's the same paint. So we'll see if we can figure out what the current paint number is, and we'll add it on the comments on the video when we upload it to YouTube. So I'm just going to get a tiny little bit of that, and we don't need a lot because there isn't very much skin on this guy. And away we go. So we've got it on the wet palette, so we don't need to add any water to it particularly, because there's a little bit of moisture on the surface of the thing already, and we're going to fire away. So I'm going to paint his skin first. Now one thing is, I don't paint eyes on human size figures this size because I haven't got that steady a hand, and it's just madness. So we're just going to paint his skin and get a nice even coat on it, and then we're going to let the wash that we're going to put on, we're going to use some Citadel Reichland flesh shade on this guy, so we're going to use some wash, and we're going to let the wash fill his eyes in for us in his recesses, because I can't even see it. And that's not the miniature's fault, it's because my eyesight is not that good. That's a little bit thick there. Let's just... So when we do the sub box every month, so I have a big long list that's got all the Reaper figures on. When there's any new releases, we add them to the bottom of the list, but essentially it's just a big spreadsheet that's got all the Reaper codes on. And then what I do is I look through our catalogue of figures, which I think this guy's got a ring on his finger or something. I've noticed there on his thing. We'll sort that out later. Either that or it's a little moulding that I've forgotten to clean off, but I'm going to paint it as a ring and not admit to any fault. Right, so just missed a little bit under there. So yeah, we get the big long list and we look down the big long list, and then I look through our catalogue and I think, yeah, that's cool, or I like that. And then what I do is I filter my big spreadsheet and see whether we've ever used that figure before, because we've been running it for about 3 years now, the sub box. I think it's 3 years. And occasionally I'll pick a figure and I'll realise that we've used it once before, and if we've used it before, we make every attempt, barring some catastrophic error on my spreadsheet, make every attempt not to use it again. So in the past we've put maybe a couple of other things in, so we've had some, occasionally we've put a paint in if we thought that one of the Reaper paint colours was particularly cool and everybody might want one in their collection. I think we put some fresh blood in one Halloween. I think we've put one of Reaper's paintbrushes in the past as well. So you might notice that I'm not the neatest painter in the world, so I've gone slightly over onto his sleeves and the inside of his hood, but we're going to sort that out in a minute when we get to the next stage. So just a couple of thin coats, as Mr Rhodes says. He's got a lot to answer for, that guy. Although he is a very nice man, and hopefully buy some of his figures these days from Mighty Lancer Games. So skin done for now. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paint his swords, because the wash that I'm going to put on just to shade these two areas down is going to take the longest to dry. So the next thing we're going to do is paint his sword. Now with a wet palette, you may or may not know, but you can't really use metallics on it, because if little metallic particles get into the moisture in your thing, you'll end up with little metallic flecks in all your paint. So what we're going to do is get this little palette over here and just put a tiny little bit of silver on the edge, and this is Army Painter Shining Silver that we're going to use for his sword and his dagger. And I'm going to try using the smaller brush, because I think the end on that one's just getting a little bit whack. I'm not the kindest painter to my paintbrushes, I'm afraid. I tend to have more of a jabbing action, which wrecks the tips pretty quickly. Feel free to make your own innuendo out of anything I'm saying, because I'm sure there'll probably be plenty. So there we go, just a nice smooth coat of silver on there. So I can't really recommend, that's a bad way to start. I can only recommend these Green Stuff World brushes extremely highly in terms of quality for price. So I know a lot of people buy expensive paintbrushes and they swear by the quality of the paintbrushes and what have you, but I've had expensive paintbrushes in the past, and it's, if you're a clumsy painter like I am, it's just as easy to wreck an expensive paintbrush as it is to wreck a cheap paintbrush. So for like £3 or whatever one of these Green Stuff World brushes is, I don't think you can go wrong really. And they do have a wide range of brushes, so you can go from like the Green series synthetic brushes, which are like £2 to £3 or so per brush, depending on how big a brush you want, right up to the Gold series brushes, which are sort of £10–13 a brush, and they're obviously the finest Siberian sable or whatever it is that they make these things out of. But some people, as I think it was Hamish that we were watching the other day, said some people don't like the idea of using an animal hair brush, so they use a synthetic brush. But and I do like army painter brushes. A lot of people like army painter brushes. Nothing against army painter brushes, but their prices have steadily crept up over the past couple of years. So now a character brush, which is what a lot of people use for the majority of their painting, they're about £5. And again, when you can destroy as many paintbrushes as I can, it could get quite expensive.
Yeah. Mr Bex is agreeing with you. Going with Green Stuff World brushes are cool. You've also got a couple of questions.
Alright, go on then.
So, why are you using a wet palette? What's the benefits of that?
So, the idea is that it keeps your paint more fluid, and that you can put the lid on and you can go away for a few hours or whatever and then come back, or even a couple of days. So the sheet that I took off here, so I could put this one on, so we could have a nice clean one on for this stream, had been in here for I think 3 weeks since I was last painting Dark Elves, and the purple and the blues that I was using for painting the Dark Elves were still fresh on the sheet. So I've just taken it off and given it a rinse out. Now you might be able to see because I'm a clumsy painter, the staining through onto the sheet underneath. So if I just peel that back, so this is where my purple was, and it's run through because obviously I put too much paint in. So I try and only put a little bit of paint on like this, but I'm very clumsy, and which is why the rest of this thing is all stained red, because I put too much on. But fortunately, that sheet underneath has been in the wash. It's quite a robust foam, so that's been fully washed and cleaned, but unfortunately it is still stained. But it doesn't affect any of the paint that you have on your top sheet on top. So it just keeps your paint fresher for longer. Now where we paint here is quite warm. We've got a radiator under the desk, and it dries paint out on a traditional palette really, really quickly. But on the wet palette, it stays, which is why I use this, because I thought if I'm going to have to be moving backwards and forwards with paint colours, it would be better, it would keep it fresh, and I wouldn't have to keep pouring the paint out. Cool.
And what colours are you going to use for the armour?
So the intention is to paint the armour with a dark brown, which we're going to use russet brown, Reaper russet brown, and then depending on whether we've got time, we'll have a go at trying to pick out some of these tiny little studs on here for studded leather. But we're basically going to paint all the dark brown and then maybe highlight it up ever so slightly if we can, and then we might paint the studs in if we've got time. How long has it taken me just to paint 2 swords?
You've been talking.
Right, so swords done, face and hands done. So what we're going to do is just give those a quick wash over with a bit of Reichland Flesh Shade and the good old traditional Nuln Oil. And yes, I do lick my paintbrush, just in case anybody saw that. So this is a small pot of Reichland Flesh Shade, showing it to the wrong camera. This is a small pot of Reichland Flesh Shade. So this size pot of shades comes out of some of Citadel's starter sets. So occasionally we have damaged stock and what have you, or I think this particular one would have come out of one of the sets that we split for when we do painting with kids in the summer. So under normal circumstances, obviously current COVID restrictions, we've not been able to do it, but during normal, whatever's going to pass for normal times, we run after school painting classes and holiday painting classes for kids in the local area, so people can come along and we teach them a few basic skills. And some of the manufacturers that we work with very kindly provide us miniatures and paints and what have you for those. Right, so I'll just apply a bit thick. Right, so can you see his face? We zoom in a little. Yeah. So seeing as he's got a heavy hood on, just a little bit of heavy shade in his eyes will define his eyes good enough for me, at least. Some people might like to go a lot more extreme with it, but I think his eyes are going to be dark anyway. I'm not going to worry too much about that. So I'll just change over to the Nuln Oil. And we've got a big pot of Nuln Oil, prime for spilling all over on stream. That would be bad. Hopefully not today. It wouldn't be a Mighty Lancer Games video production without at least one major fail. We'll do our best. Can you see that? Am I in frame? Mm-hmm. So some people only really like painting metal figures, but I would encourage them to give bones a try. There's quite a lot of the sculpts that are currently available in metal are also available as bones figures, and we're due to get a whole new wave once the Reaper Bones 5 Kickstarter stuff starts making its way to retail. And Bones figures are excellent value, and if you've ever seen this guy in metal, if I told you that he was a plastic figure and you didn't know, would you know? I think you'd be very hard pressed to determine the difference between the two. So a little bit of shade on there, Nuln Oil, fortunately no spillage, and so we've done his hands, we've done his blades, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this to dry, and I'm going to get the one that I prepared earlier, because the wash will take a little bit of time to dry. So here's one I prepared earlier, and you can see that this guy's dagger is just a little bit bent. I missed that when I straightened his sword out. But
how do you straighten?
Sorry?
How do you straighten it?
So if you've never dealt with bones figures before, that's an excellent question, Mrs MLG. So what you would do to straighten this guy out, excuse me while I just have a drink. So what you would do to straighten it out is, or what I do, is boil the kettle and then very, very carefully pour hot water, boiling water, onto the part that you want to straighten out, and it'll become really, really floppy. So it'd be like really floppy. And then when it's in that kind of almost, I don't know, it's not fluid, but when it's that very, very floppy state, if you straighten it out to how you want it and then run it under a cold tap so some people say plunge them into ice, but I found just running the cold tap for, I don't know, 20-30 seconds until any residual heat has come out of the pipes and you've just got like fresh water running out the main, it should be somewhere around 1 or 2 degrees, and you can put that part under the tap, under the tap. Put that part under the tap and it will straighten it out. So when I first got this guy out of the blister, this hand was bent across and his sword was touching the top of his head. So obviously I've straightened him out slightly and I straightened this hand out. And the other figure that we've put over there to dry was similarly bent, and obviously he's slightly better. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to paint his trousers and his sleeves. So for that, I think I said I was going to do those blue. Let me do the thing before. Mrs MLG is just going to check for me what colour I said I was going to paint them. Sleeves and trousers. Blue, so we're going to go to blue. So we're going to do those in, again, a Reaper colour, 29816 solid blue. But any blue will do if you're painting along, like a mid blue. It's not quite an ultramarine, it's too, there we go. It's a bit dark for an ultramarine, but we'll get that on the palette. Let's see, let's move that guy out of the way. So we've just about finished with silver. So, there we go. Quite a nice deep blue. Maybe like a Prussian blue, maybe, perhaps. So, I'm just going to paint his trousers.
So once you've bent his sword, is there any other prep you need to do with a Reaper? Do you need to undercoat them or wash them? Or?
Well, we always wash our bones figures. Now, Reaper do say on their packaging that you can paint them straight out of the packaging, and obviously they recommend painting them with their own line of paints, and as you can tell, we really like Reaper paints, but I would always wash the figures with a bit of warm soapy water, and if you've got an old toothbrush, then that's best. Just give it a good scrub over, just make sure you get any mould agent off the figure, because there's nothing worse than getting your mini and just seeing your paint rub off it as there's a bit of greasy residue on there as it just flows away from where you want it to be, or ends up in a sticky blob somewhere on your figure. So I would always recommend giving it a nice wash up in warm soapy water, as you would with any resin mini or indeed metal mini. I mean, I'd heartily recommend washing any metal minis that you might be going to paint, just to make sure you've got any of the mould release agent or whatever. I know years ago I had a go at casting some of my own minis, not for Mighty Lancer games, when I was back at school, from some Prince August moulds, if anybody's ever heard of those. I think they're still on the go, making stuff. So melted down some lead with an old camping stove, and you got a little pan of half moulds, and you used to use talcum powder as like, well, you dust it on the inside of the moulds. I don't know what the proper metal casters use these days, but yeah, just talc on the inside of the moulds, and it would stop the figures sticking. But then obviously you need to wash all that off, otherwise you get like a powdery residue on your figures, and then it would mix with your paints. So we've just painted just his trousers and the tips of these sleeves here. Now, do you reckon I was going to paint these like baggier sleeves with a red and paint the lining of his cloak with a red there? I think we'll go with that. That was my original plan. So just a little bit of blue. At the end of the day, he's supposed to be an assassin, but then I envisaged this guy as being, he looks quite aristocratic, a bit like a duelist. I think he's going to want a little bit of like swish royal garb to his attire. Who knows? So you see how much blue I put on the palette here? That's way too much paint for that tiny little bit I've painted. You really do just need the tiniest little bit. That's one good thing about Citadel paint pots is because you're using it out of the tip of the pot, you're only using as much paint as you're actually using. Whereas when you're using dropper balls, there's an argument for both, isn't there? But when you're using dropper balls, if you splurge too much out, like the other night, what was I painting? I can't remember what it was I was using. I splurged too much paint onto the palette for what I was doing, and I ended up wasting loads of paint because clumsy painter. Right, so the next paint we're going to use is some 29801 Crimson Red, which I could be wrong, but I think that this is very similar to 9401, which is Dragon Red in the Reaper Bones paint range. So I'm just going to use some of this. I'm going to paint the lining of his cloak and those baggy sleeves. I keep forgetting to talk to this camera. I keep thinking I'm talking to this one. And this is a really nice deep red, and I love it. So when I eventually get to paint my Maldrakar, which is a massive dragon, and I've had it ever since my Kickstarter pledge got delivered about, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, whenever it was, and we showed loads of photos of it next to our dog to show how big he was and things, or she was, and I've painted the base and never got any further to the dragon, but the body of my dragon is going to be painted in this red because I think it's beautiful. So I'm just going to paint this guy's sleeves. I don't know whether it's gone totally out of print or they were awaiting another print run at Reaper, but I know that they are quite hard to find now. But the last time I was down at Reaper, we bought everything that they had, and we've subsequently sold them all to customers. So unless they've found some squirreled away somewhere, certainly Reaper in the UK don't have any.
How come you've not painted your Maldrakar?
Because I have a lot less time than I think I have in my head. Because everything takes so long. But I'll get there one day. So I've got a whole bunch of painting projects on the go that eventually I may finish. And Maldrakar is just one of them. So I've also been painting a Citadel Forge World Brass Scorpion for the last 2 years that Mrs MLG bought me for my birthday. Is it 2 years or is it 3 years? Might even be 3 years. So, and it's an amazing model, and the reason that that's taken me so long to paint, and that's wholly base coated with various colours, but it's nowhere near finished. But the reason that that's taken me so long is because it's a bit like Maldrakar, really. It's such a magnificent model that I don't want to wreck it by doing something short of excellent. So it's going to be a very long-term project. And then after I've successfully completed Maldrakar and the Brass Scorpion, I've got one of the Forge World Bloodthirsters, Angrath the Unbound, I think he's called, which is another model I've wanted ever since it first came out, and a little while ago, a couple of years ago, I got the opportunity to get my hands on one. And so that is, it's assembled. It's part way there. It's fully assembled. It's in one of the display cabinets at the store until I get round to painting him. Right then, so we've got sleeves. Have we painted this? No, missed all this top edge of this sleeve here. That's no good, is it? Is this? blobbed a bit there. I've painted a bit of his armour, but it's alright, because we're going to go back and paint the armour after it, aren't we? So that's okay. And then we're going to paint the inside of his cloak in this same red and make it nice and luxurious for him, because I imagine Danar's probably a pseudonym. No, is it a pseudonym? An alias. His real name's probably Pierre or something like that, and he's slumming it as a assassin for hire, or maybe his family's lost all their money. I don't know. But even if you're never going to use this mini to depict your player character, I think sometimes when you're painting your figure, making up a little backstory for him is like just a bit of fun, isn't it? And if you really like a mini, which that's the way I try and select all the figures that go into the sub box, I pick the things that I like, and I pick the things that I think would be cool to paint. So there's never a mini that goes in there that I think, oh, just lump that in. It's always something that I think would be good to do myself. So I was quite pleased when Mrs MLG suggested that for our stream we paint a mini from the sub box, because I think they're all awesome and I'll be quite happy painting any of them.
It was a follower that suggested it, but
was it? Oh, well.
Honestly, I can't remember who it was.
Well, let's give credit to whoever the follower was. I do apologise, but we can. It's an excellent idea, and I'm quite happy. Thank you very much. So, just a little bit more in that recess there. So, as you can see, this red is really quite dark, and what we're going to do is we're just going to highlight that up with a little lighter red. Not as much on the cloak, because we want the inside of the cloak to be dark. We're going to give these sleeves a little bit more of an accent, and then we're going to leave the outside of his cloak black. So then I'll paint that recess around his face and what have you in there with a bit of black. So next we're going to do his armour. Excuse me, I shall have to have another drink. I don't normally talk this much. This is like right. What are we doing? Having a drink. Let's not have branding on video. I'm sure you might be able to guess what it is. It's good for your throat.
Is it medicinal?
Yeah, it's medicinal. Medicinal, that's what it is. It's medicinal. So.
Why aren't you using the vortex mixer?
Oh, because it's noisy, and I haven't got the hang of it. So we've got a vortex mixer. If anybody's ever used or heard of what a vortex mixer is, so we've got a vortex mixer, which is this thing here, which is this thing here. And I bought it for Mrs MLG when she decided that she was going to get very into painting, and she's doing an awesome painting job, and I wanted her to have all of the tools, but I can't get the hang of putting the paint in the top of the thing, and I just can't get my head around it.
What colour did you use for the cloak again?
So the cloak was 29801 crimson red.
Do they still make that?
They don't still make this, but it is very similar to, I think it's 9401, which is dragon red. Have we got a dragon red?
I don't know. Maybe in a minute.
Alright, so we'll carry on, and then Mrs MLG will see if she can find a dragon red in the paint cupboard. So next, for his armour, we're going to use, and again, far too much paint for what I'm doing, but it's alright, because it won't go off, is 9199 Russet Brown. Oh, there we go. So Mrs MLG has just found some dragon red. So we'll come back to that in a second. So what I'll splodge out a little bit of our dragon red here on the paint palette. Ooh. It's a bit dry, my dear. It's a bit dry.
We haven't got a pokey stick.
Yeah, we've not got a. I've not spent my pocket money on a paint pokey stick yet, so we've got a pin. So, can you see the difference? So the dragon red is possibly just a little bit lighter, but not by much. Very nearly the same colour. In fact, we'll leave. No, we don't. I'll put it on the palette now. We don't need to keep it out, do we? Anyway.
Maddoth says, are you going to highlight it up with 89505? Which I can't say.
89505. No, that's one of the that's one of the Pathfinder paint colours that they've repackaged some of these as. But what I was going to use is 9278 Gory Red. So that was my plan. Mainly because I haven't got the colour that you've mentioned. We have at the shop, but we haven't got one at home. So where was I? Russet brown. So we're going to use some russet brown, and we're going to stick with using the small paintbrush because I don't like that other one anymore. It's gone a little bit. I've been using it for everything. That other one and the end's just gone a little bit wide. So russet brown. It looks very light going on, like a really rich colour, but yeah. I'm very confident that once this dries, it will be a bit darker. And if it doesn't, then we'll just put some Nuln Oil over the top and everything will be fine. Because as we all know, Nuln Oil is talent in a bottle. So thank you to everybody that's watching, by the way, and talking in chat, because I must admit I thought nobody would be interested in sitting and watching me like paint and babble, but thank you for checking in and giving us a watch.
The Bald GM is painting.
And what is the Bald GM painting?
The Hellhound from Fire Giant.
Awesome. I've not really seen a painted example of that Fire Giant and Hellhound, apart from Reapers. So I would very much like, if anybody is a subscriber to our sub box, like Mr Ball GM, maybe a subscriber to our sub box. So if you are a subscriber to our sub box, and if you are happy to do so, if you would like to send us via email or however you'd like to do it, I think you could probably do it via Twitter or whatever. If you want to send us pictures of your minis that you have painted from the sub box or whatever, and you're happy for us to use them, we would love to be able to put those up on the website to put on the image for that miniature on the web store. I think that'd be pretty awesome, because it just gives our other potential customers a chance to see what that figure would look like painted. And as you've probably guessed, while I'd love to be able to paint one of everything, I just haven't got the time.
He says he will do.
That would be fantastic, thank you. He's just got, oh look at that, he's got a sneaky little bit of armour down there. Right then, so just as yeah, So my intention was just to leave that recess in between his legs there, because I always think when they've not, and obviously you don't expect that they can do, but when they don't sculpt all the detail in the gap between the figure's legs there, I like to leave it black or very, very dark if I can, this bit up here, just because you can't see it on the tabletop. When that figure's there, you can't see what's under his
Can't see that either.
under his thing. So when it, I do apologise. So when he's there, and you can't, or there, and you can't see what's up his dress, you know, if it's just painted black, that doesn't matter, does it? I could spend ages detailing like what was his trousers and everything up there, but you're never going to see it. Doesn't really matter. My view doesn't have to be yours. But, again, fill your own innuendo in here. So, sorry, I kept putting him off camera. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to paint his boots and his belt, and we're going to do that with a lighter brown. We're going to paint that with shield brown. So, just in case you weren't, the reason that I like to suck the end of my paintbrushes, or lick the end of my paintbrushes, is to keep the point nice, because you should only really put paint, everybody talks about this and I feel that I have to, but if you're a completely novice painter, you should only really get paint maybe about halfway up the bristles of your brush, if you can see that any better. So only get paint about half the bristles up your brush, because if you get paint into the ferrule up here, then you're going to wreck the brush in no matter of time at all. So and that's even before you start stabbing at your figure to paint it like I do. So I like to spit all over it. But that's fine, because it's only for me. The figures are only for me. I'm not sending them to anybody or selling them or anything like that, so it doesn't really matter. I can do what I like. All of my figures are infused with my phlegm. Nice.
Lovely.
I know, I just thought I'd add that in there. Just a treat for you all, sorry. Right, so a tiny little bit of, because I always put too much paint on, 9161 shield brown. So this is a really nice, like leathery brown colour, and so we're going to use that for his boots and his belt. And the other good tip for your getting your paint off your palette or whatever and not getting it wrecking the tip of your brush is, as you're getting your paint off your palette, if you can see that, is just give your little brush a bit of a twist, and that helps keep the point nice and not hooking over, because that really sucks.
Don't forget to keep him off your palette.
Sorry. Rookie mistake. So he's got a little triangular shaped buckle or something on his belt there. We're just going to leave that, and we'll come back to that with a bit of gold or something. I'd missed that bit before. We'd have told you that we needed gold in advance if I'd have seen it. And just a little line of leather down there. Painted his belt around, and then we're going to paint his boots the same. How are we doing for time? We might get all the base coats on.
When do you think we'll be able to have tournaments in the shop?
So the way I kind of think about opening up our gaming floor is to treat it like a cafe, I guess, or such like so, or a cinema, perhaps. So like when it's time for gyms and cinemas and what have you to open, that we'll probably open up the gaming floor when it's safe to do so in the shop, and obviously various restrictions will need to apply. So if government guidance is that we still need to be wearing face masks and using all the hand sanitizers and all the rest of the thing that appear to be commonplace, and rightly so, then so once those kind of things are in effect, then we'll feel confident that we can open up the gaming floor. So I'm not really sure what the current timeline is around that, but I know that, is it pubs and restaurants and what have you can open in, is it May or June? June, I think, isn't it? So certainly around that, when the pubs and cafes and what have you are allowed to open, it'll be no later than that really that we open the gaming floor up again, and then we'll start getting some tournaments organised and other things in socially distanced and appropriate measures, so we can get some stuff happening in store. We'd just moved to our fantastic new location just in time for lockdown to start last year, and we haven't really been able to have the benefit, apart from a few days, of the fantastic gaming space that we've currently got. So we've laid a whole new floor in the room, and we've kitted out all the gaming tables, and we've got some amazing scenery, and we can't let anybody in to use it. So it's a real shame, but we'll get it open as soon as we possibly can in a safe manner, and then we'll be able to run our D&D nights and painting classes and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic tournaments. And sorry, I'm just waving my hands around now, that's not really helpful for anybody that's watching, I do apologise. So here we go. So he's currently almost all base coated. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do some black, and we're going to do the outside of his cloak. Now it already is black in the primer, but what we're going to use is some Reaper 9693 coal black, which I really like. I think it came in a Christmas sampler, this, but I'm pretty sure that it's freely available currently. I could be proved wrong, but this is a really dark with a tinge blue colour, and it didn't want to come out. Pokey tool.
Hamish has arrived. Said we were talking about him earlier. You must know.
Yeah. No.
Have you wrecked my pokey?
No. Nearly wrecked my fingers, but yeah, there we go. Coal black. So a tiny little bit of coal black on there. Hamish is another master painter to make me feel bad. Do you know, I've just realised that this whole section here, we'll have to come back and sort this out in a minute, but this whole section here is part of the cloak that's folded over it, and I need to paint that red. So I'm just going to touch in that bit there that I've missed with the primer. With that in there, there's a tiny little bit up there that I've missed with the primer. And then we'll paint the rest of the cloak black, and then we'll come back and we'll paint that bit red like it should be. How's Hamish doing?
Oh, that's good.
How's Hamish doing? How are you doing, Hamish? I really liked your dragon that you painted. I think the colour of the wings looked excellent. I think that was a week or two ago, but I'm a bit behind the times.
He says he's alright.
Super. So I thought about painting this cloak maybe purple or something like that, and then I thought to myself, well, what self-respecting assassin, murderer for hire, would go around with anything but a black cloak on? You know, it's which is why we've gone for coal black, so it's that tiny little hint of blue in, but it's still definitely black.
It comes in the Holiday Colours paint set.
There you go. It comes in the Holiday Colours paint set, or if Reaper do Holiday Samplers again, you might be able to get hold of it. But it is an excellent colour. It'd be like if you got black indigo and just added more black to it. I think it's one of my favourites. I painted some spiders with it the other day. Giant spiders for an upcoming project. Top secret. Can't mention it any more than that. Don't let me spoil it.
I hope I know about it.
Yeah.
Now, Team MMX says it's a rookie mistake because assassins don't wear black. And I'm going to say this wrong, but I know that you will know what the reference is, but I'm not good with names. He says, ask Lord, here we go, Vetinaril from Discworld.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, yeah, it would just be unfashionable, wouldn't it, for the things. Discworld books are awesome, but I'm well out of touch with loads of the Discworld stuff. I think I've read virtually everything of Pratchett's written up to sorry. Just yakking now, but I think I've read all the Discworld books apart from Raising Steam, which I've got but I just haven't read, and I love his books. They're awesome, and I've got a few signed copies, which someone once joked to me that his I don't know if it was a joke that he'd made himself, that an unsigned copy of his books would be worth more than a signed copy of his books, because he would sign just about anything at a book signing. But I think it's fantastic. But I don't really, like, a bit like painting, don't really get a massive amount of time to read, because if anybody's ever told you that running a business doesn't take any time, here's a fibber. And running a business like Mighty Lancer Games takes up a lot of time. So, right, just need to get that bit. So this is where me being a clumsy painter is important, or more apparent, shall we say, because I could quite easily have painted his entire face black then while I was just trying to paint around the edges, but fortunately I haven't, which is a win. Which is a win. So I think I've got all the bits that need to be coal black. So then we're going to go back and we're going to get that red, because it's still fresh on the palette, because we're using a wet palette, and that's a good reason why you should use a wet palette, because that would have dried out by now. And we're just going to paint this bit that I've missed here. So wash, brush.
Are the Discworld miniatures from Poland?
I believe they are from Poland, yeah. Micro Art Studios make them, and they do make a whole range of stuff, predominantly bases and scenery type bits and pieces, but they have the license to do the Discworld minis, and I've got some of those Discworld minis to paint one day. Maybe one day we might do one of those on a stream. So I've got all my favourite characters stashed away, ready to paint for my own collection. So we've got Esme Weatherwax and Death of Rats and Vimes and Librarian, and I haven't got the luggage for myself yet. That's still on my wish list, but got some of the favourites. One of the others that I really like is Susan Stowe-Hewitt. I think she's a great character, and they've done the Canting crew and some of the characters from I can never say it right, Ankh-Morpork. Some of the things. I think you can get Foul Old Ron and Gaspode the Wonder Dog and all sorts of awesome figures, and they are really nice looking figures, and there's some busts that they do as well. So I think there's Vimes and Weatherwax, Death and Rincewind, I think. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, so I mean they all look awesome, so maybe one day I might do one of those, but that's quite an in-depth painting project. So I blobbed a little bit just onto his trousers. I'm just going to touch that up, and then then what we're going to do is we're going to just apply a couple of little highlights, and what have you. So we might just have to put a little bit of a wash on his boots and his armour, because I think that needs a little bit more definition. Maybe, yeah, because this red is next to the russet brown is quite similar, isn't it? Oh, I've just put that in the wrong water. That's no good, is it? Not drinking water. We have two different pots of water, one for metallics and one for non-metallics, and I've just washed my brown brush in there. What a fool. What a fool. Actually, I've just realised what's happening. So we've got 2 minutes left for our 8 till 9 o'clock stream. So there we go. There's the finished miniature, everybody. So we've fully base coated our figure, and really you could just use him as he is, but I think he needs a little bit, a little bit more work. So what I might do is just carry on, and if you want to stay watching, then by all means stay watching, and we'll carry on for a little bit longer while we do a little bit more to him, and then we'll see where we get to in maybe another like 15-20 minutes. So I think I'll just plough on, shall we?
That's what you want, my daddy.
Seems good, doesn't it? I think. Now I'm pretty sure that earlier on I'd put some Agrax Earthshade around here somewhere.
You can have mine if you like.
Oh, that'd be excellent, thank you. So this is another one of those small pot things. So this is good old Citadel Agrax Earthshade, and we're just going to use a little bit of that, and we're going to put it on his boots and on his armour.
Kingy Metch says that you should do a monthly Vallejo box. Now we've looked at doing different types of boxes before, haven't we, sweetie pie?
We have, and you know, we're open to the idea of doing some different things. So if you wanted a monthly Vallejo box, what would you like? What kind of things would you like to see in something like that? I guess you need to, if you can give us an idea of what kind of things that you might like to receive, and how much would you like to spend is an important factor, because we've tried out a couple of different things. So we looked at doing a metal miniatures box every month, but for you to get any figures of, like, let's say we made it £25 and you got metal minis every month instead of bones minis every month, then really you might be getting 4 figures or 5 figures each month. Now that might be cool if you want to get, and there's plenty of figures to choose from. But I guess in a Vallejo one, you want paint colours.
He says, like the Reaper Bone subscription box that we do now, the £20 per month is a target figure.
All right, and what sort of things? So Vallejo do all kinds of products. Now we've just got, and we haven't listed on the website yet, but they are present in store. We've just got Vallejo Model Air and Game Colour, and Game Air is on the way. But we've also got the Scenic and Weathering paint effects paints, which we'll have listed for sale over the coming weeks. So there's certainly plenty of choice of things that we could put in it, and also they've started doing now some great scenic products. So somewhere, not within arm's reach, but they've started doing a range of tufts, scenic tufts that are quite reasonably priced and packaged. They look pretty cool, so we've got those. I think they're down that end of the workstation if you want to grab them.
Oh, everyone's going to see your bottom now, not walk
past. No, that's no good. Good job you've got some trousers on. This is excellent. I can waffle about a new product while I'm waiting for my ink to dry. That's good. So we'll put this guy near the radiator, and then I will tell you about new product ranges.
You could do like a black armour set which have different shades of black and grey, etc.
Alright, so themed things rather than just a random selection then, I guess, is... That'd be pretty cool. We could certainly look at that. So these are, let me just move that out of the way, and while that guy's drying, while that ink's drying, let me just talk about a couple of these. So these are some of Vallejo's. Now I don't know how new these are, if I'm entirely honest, but I saw them for the first time the other day and I thought they were wicked, so we got them in for the shop. So these are the range of tufts. Now you get a single sheet which is about half the size of what you might get out of a army painter or other brand of tuft, and they look very similar in packaging design to Gamer's Grass, if you've ever seen Gamer's Grass. Now these are produced for Vallejo in Spain, and then they're packaged nicely. The blisters are quite robust. I like that. Gives you a lot of detail on the front of the pack about what it is. So a dry wild tuft gives you the measurements, 12mm, and the size also in inches, and then tells you how many tufts there are. So in this pack there's 35 tufts, 35 tufts in that one, 35 tufts in this smaller one, and obviously they're 2mm. And these are priced at approximately £3 to £3.50 will be the sale price when we list them for sale. And there's a whole range of these. I think there's maybe 25 or more, maybe 27 different colours and things. So that's 425. So that's number 25. That's number 2. So they range in sizes between 2mm and 12mm, and they're in a whole range of colours as you would expect, and they're pretty awesome. So we're going to have these listed for sale. Pretty soon. When Mrs MLG gets around to doing that. So over the next week or so, these will be listed for sale, and then we'll get on to adding all the new paints and other bits and pieces onto the site. So we've got, like I said, we've got Vallejo Model Air. We've currently got all the Vallejo Model Colour, but we've got Vallejo Model Air. We've got the Panzer Aces, which we've already got. We've got Game Colour, which we're going to be adding shortly, sets and individual paints, and basically everything that Vallejo produced paint-wise. I think we're going to have everything. We've already got their big pots of washes, which are very similar to Null Oil and Agrax Earthshade, the Game Colour washes. They're about £7.99 for a big pot full. And here we are, fresh from the radiator. So that's darkened down that armour quite nicely. And then what we're going to do is just highlight those boots and things up there. What I might do is, while we're working on those, I might just put another little blob of Fleischland rest shade Reichland flesh shade on his face there, and just see if we can. Oh, sorry. There you go. Autofocus, manual focus. So we're going to put a little bit more shade on his face and see if we can darken the recesses down a bit. I don't want to put Agrax earth shade on there because it'll make it way too dark, muddy. I want to make it still so it's got a little bit of human glow to it rather than just being dirty.
So I just want to say thank you to everyone that's watched for the full hour and has to go now for important life stuff.
Yeah, if you need to go, then thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in, taking time out of your life to watch my ramblings.
Are they?
And if you're still here, thank you for that.
Are the weathering paints on the website currently, or have I not done that yet?
No, we've not done those yet.
Do you know how much they're going to be?
I don't. I can't remember, but I don't think they're excessively priced. I think they're all quite reasonable money. There's all sorts of weathering effects as well, stuff that I'd never even thought of. So there's all sorts of different rust effects and verdigris and things, and then there's I think there's like a dirty snow or something like that in the range. Some quite cool sounding stuff.
He says use. It's all these things that I can't pronounce, isn't it? You shabby burn under the shade to keep it white.
All right. We'll have to give that a try. I've kind of gone away from it. I mean, I use the washes, but sorry. I've kind of gone away from using Citadel's paint range over the past few years, because years ago, when I first started in the hobby, I used almost exclusively Citadel colours and anything that I could get like acrylic wise from our local craft shop. And then, where's my dry brush? So I had all these Citadel paints and I used almost exclusively Citadel paints for years, and then I don't know, maybe 15 years ago I decided that I needed some new paints, and I started, well it can't be that long, but I started buying some Army Painter paints. They were quite affordable and nice vivid colours and what have you. And we got some Army Painter stuff when the range was still a lot smaller, and I pretty much replaced all of my old Citadel paints with the Army Painter paints, and I really liked them. And then there were some gaps because there was only I think 42 paints in the Army Painter range at the time. I started picking up odd Vallejo and Reaper paints to supplement my collection, and now it's grown and we've just got loads of Reaper paints and loads of Vallejo paints in the cupboard and all the Army Painter paints, and the only GW paints that we really use on a regular basis are they're technical and shade paints, aren't they? It's yes, I'll just crack on doing a bit of painting, shall I? That'll be so
what are the washers then? What do the washers do, and what's the different ones that you've used tonight?
So
what have you just used?
So we've used Reichland Flesh Shade, Agrax Earth Shade and Null Oil, and the idea of that is it's just a pigmented wash basically of not exactly the same but very similar to really thinning your paint down to an almost water consistency, and then spreading it all over your figure, painting it all over your figure. And where are we? We want highlight colour. Driftwood brown, this is what we're going to use. So this is 9162 Driftwood brown, and we're just going to use this to highlight up his boots ever so slightly. So you paint the pigmented water essentially over your figure where you want it to, and it will just go into the recesses and naturally shade your figure for you, is the intention. So we're going to do a little bit of dry brushing on his boots. So we're going to get some of this Driftwood brown, and this is just a Citadel small dry brush. So we're going to take that paint and we're going to rub most of it off, and then we're just going to see how that looks on his boots there. And we can't do this on his belt because unfortunately it's too thin, and I'll end up getting this all over his studded arm. So there we go. So nice bit of darker brown in the recess there. That'll do. Somebody asked the other day, I think, should you wash your dry brush? When was that? When did we see that? You should always wash your dry brush. And then if you need to, just give it
a dry brush. So they were slightly confused by that.
So once you've washed it and you need to dry it out, just rub it on your palm of your hand. And as long as you've not loaded it too heavily with paint, it should be ready for another use in seconds. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to get our gory red, which we're going to use to put some highlights on his cloak. So we're going to squidge out a little bit of gory red, maybe.
A little bit, that means you're going to get
Yeah. There we go. So you can see that that's quite a nice bright, oh, excuse me, quite a nice bright red. And that's 9278 gory red. So we're just going to get a little bit of gory red, and then we're going to get a little bit of our other red, and I'm just going to mix those slightly together on here in this gap, and then we're going to just paint in lines down here. When we first talked about doing this stream, and I said to Mrs MLG, oh, it'd be no problem, we'll crack a mini out in an hour. Well, we got all the base colours done, didn't we? That was you could have used him, he would have been fine. Right then, so we've got maybe just a little bit more of that red, make a little mix. So I'm just going to get that, I'm just going to paint that up the back there. And then we'll just pick out a couple of high points on these baggy sleeves. Is anyone still watching us, or have they all gone?
They're still watching.
Blobbed a bit there onto his cloak, but we'll sort that out in a minute. Right then, so we've done that, and while we're still on the red, so we'll wash the paintbrush out. So while we're still on the red, we're going to get a bit of the gory red, just a bit of neat gory red over here, and then we're going to go and just give those areas that we've just done just another fine highlight inside the area of the highlight that we've just done. So you don't want to just paint everything that you've just painted red again, but you just want to do it inside it, so it's just a high point on the highlight on your highlight.
I forget your figure's quite high up on the screen.
Is that better? Okay. Right. So we'll flip him around, and we'll do, what's that in there? Let's just
So what's your intention? Are you finishing him all up, or are you stopping at past? Or?
I think, yeah, we should probably finish at past, shouldn't we? Giving everybody an idea of what we're doing. And then, so when we come back to do the next mini, next Monday, I guess we'll show you our finished piece, which won't be too dissimilar from what you see here. We'll just have a couple of extra highlights on whatever. I'm not going to spend hours and hours painting him in between now and then, and it'll be totally unrecognisable. But yeah, we'll just give him a couple of extra additions, but it'll basically be the same. I might even straighten this dagger out because it's bugging me now. So, and there's no real risk. So long as you've got a nice consistent paint colour, coating of paint on your figure, there shouldn't be any reason why you can't straighten it out once it's painted. Better to do it before it's painted, but no reason why you can't. In fact, don't know, maybe we should produce a little YouTube snippet of how we straighten a figure out. We could do that, couldn't we?
So when are you streaming next?
So the next stream will be, should have talked about this before 9 o'clock. So the next stream will be on Wednesday, and again 8 PM till 9 PM. And what we're going to do on Wednesday is I'm not going to touch this guy on that stream. What I'm going to do is I'm going to paint something else. So what I have been doing, and I might just quickly show you, is I've got these guys which I've had for quite some time, and I finally stuck some together the other day as a bit of a test. But I've got some ancient Greek figures, so these are some old Greek hoplites that I stuck together, and the idea is that I'm going to paint them up as ghosts. Now, I wanted to try a couple of different things, and I've still got another colour scheme to test on this guy here. So I might do a little bit of painting on these guys on Wednesday if I can settle on a colour scheme between now and then, and give you an idea of what I'm going to do. But my idea is that these will be ghosts, but the armour and their equipment and what have you will still be painted as if it's like the dead soldier's armour, but it'll be the body of the soldier is a spectral image. So that's my thing. So this is just a couple of colour tests. So this is Citadel Hex Wraith Flame, and this is Citadel Contrast Athematic Blue, I think it is. And then what we're also going to try is some Nighthaunt Gloom on this guy, because I've got a different idea now. Been thinking about this for about a week and trying to get my head around what I'm going to do. So I might do a little bit of that on Wednesday and show you where we are with that, and or anything else that I think of in between now and then. So let's just get a little bit more paint on this guy before we call it a night. And what I think what we'll do is we'll try and lighten his studded leather armour up a little bit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get this brush, and then so on here we've got our shield brown and our russet brown. So I'm just going to take a little bit of both of those and mix it. So the russet brown was the colour that we painted his armour with. I'm just going to mix a little bit of shield brown in there and make it a little bit lighter. And you see how much paint I've put on this paintbrush. I don't know if you can see that, but there is far too much paint on this paintbrush, so I'm going to wash it out immediately.
Because you should use an old paintbrush to mix your paint.
Yeah, you should use an old paintbrush to mix your paint. So I'm going to do that. So then we've mixed up this paint here, which is a little bit of russet and shield brown, and then we're going to use that on our fine brush, and we're going to paint it onto his armour around the edges. We're not going to paint all his armour, we're just going to paint the edges, and we're not even going to do all around the back under his armour, because it's supposed to be a highlight, and it wouldn't be a highlight if it was under his cloak. So what mini, if you're still watching, what mini from our sub box would you like to see us tackle next week? Now, I don't think, based on how much time this guy's taken, we're not going to have time for the giant, but we could certainly do the Great Worm, or one of the other characters, or possibly the Orc. So any of the figures apart from the Giant, really, we'll have a crack at. What would you like to see us do? If you can let us know, that'd be great. Just gonna have to do a bit there. Right. I think we just need to have a little bit darker colour there, so I'm just going to mix a little bit more russet brown in, and just so here it's a bit stark on this side, so I'm just going to mix that up a little bit and just have a little bit more of a transition across the edge of these bits on his thighs and his hips. You have a woman's hips, my lord. And that bit on his belly there. Excellent. I mean, there's no reason, joking aside, there's no reason why you couldn't use this figure as a female character in a game, really. I was having a discussion today with our web designer about figures and what would be a male figure and what would be a female figure, and in the modern world of equality and what have you, no reason why it couldn't be a male or a female. So there we are. Shall we maybe just have a? How much time have we got? Have we got time to put?
Well, you've gone over by 23 minutes.
Well, let's just have a little bit of a highlight on the Blu-ray, and then we'll call it a night. I'm having too much fun. What can I say?
Yeah.
I don't get out much. So we're going to use a little bit of winter blue as a highlight to our blue. So that's pokey tool again.
Dressmaking pin.
Yeah, dressmaking pin to the rescue. And a bit of ribbon on the end. There we go. So a bit of winter blue, and you can see that that's quite different to our other blue. So we're just going to mix a bit of that and a bit of that to make an intermediate colour again. Sometimes, until you get these things out on your palette, you can't really tell the difference. So what we have been doing, and I should have been doing this all along, so our winter blue is I'm just going to blob that into the end, and then we've got a colour match on the top of the pot. And I better do that with that solid blue as well. Not enough of that left. Anyway, I'm wasting time, aren't I? Just blobbed paint all over the nice clean painting area. I know, I'm just not safe to be let out. It's because I'm rushing, isn't it? Right. Because we're over time. Right, so we're just going to put a little highlight there on his knees and a little bit up there. And a little bit over here. One on his knee there. And then a tiny bit over here on his sleeve. And there on his sleeve. And then we'll just get a little bit of that. And a little bit of that. Do a little bit there on his boots. And on that pouch. Voila! So, and then we'll paint the ground in. So we'll show you the finished product next week, but and we'll paint the ground in, maybe stick a tuft on there or something, and we'll just tidy up his armour a tiny little bit, and then we'll show you the finished product next week. But I'm a slow painter, and I never claim to be a magnificent
If you hold it still, I'll try
artist, but if we can focus him in, so hopefully he looks alright to you. With his a little bit of highlight in there. Excellent. I'm quite happy with him so far. I mean, he's not the greatest, but I think he looks okay. So we'll just have a little tiny little bit more work to him, and then next week we'll show you the finished result, or I might even show you on Wednesday if I've got it done by then, but we'll see. So please join us on Wednesday at 8 o'clock, and we'll try and stick to an hour on Wednesday, because it'll be more of a work in progress type thing rather than trying to get a specific miniature done. And we'll let you know at some point over the weekend which miniature we're going to be painting next Monday. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate you checking in to listen to me ramble and splatter paint all over. And enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks a lot. Am I still here? I'm still here. Can they still hear me?
Yeah.
Ah, what? So yeah, thanks for watching everybody, and please check out our next videos and streams and all that kind of jazz. And if you're not already a subscriber to our Reaper sub box, maybe go onto the website and check that out. If you check out the page on the website for the sub box, you'll find all sorts of pictures on there of miniatures that have previously been included in the sub box and give you a taste of what's to come. And yeah, just appreciate you all watching. Thank you very much for your time. Take care.